So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a brand new news roundup video where we break down and discuss all of the latest tidbit updates that interest me, timestamped for your convenience of course, and also just in case you've been living under a rock recently, Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1 is now out, so don't forget to check out my recap, review, and breakdown for Episode 1 if you haven't already. And if you're brand new here on the channel in general and you kind of like the vibe perhaps, consider subscribing, and if you have a spare second, I'd greatly appreciate a like rating. Now, starting off here with something a little bit different here at the beginning of today's news roundup before we dive into some pretty fascinating new DC updates and then a little bit of Marvel peppered in there later on. I have covered this before, and with season 2, well, basically, typically last news roundup, the blessing and curse on the channel struck once again. As I was uploading that video, we had Gamescom going on at the same time, and of course, they released the Fallout Season 2 teaser trailer. Now, let me know down in the comments below if you enjoyed Fallout Season 1, whether you played the games, or you haven't played the games and you still enjoyed Season 1, but me, as a huge Fallout fan who very much so enjoyed Season 1 with just how they very faithfully adapted that world, the tone of it, this Season 2 trailer absolutely rocked. So it's releasing December 17th, and I believe it's releasing weekly this time, so I might actually do episode recap reviews and breakdowns for this as well, and I'm curious to know if any of you guys would enjoy that. But there was just a ton of fan service nuggets in this teaser, which, you kind of expect since we are going to New Vegas this season, but they really didn't hold back from, seeing the Dino Delight Motel in Novak, and it was kind of like for me when I saw that, I've been there when I played the games. I remember the 14mm pistol that I pickpocketed that I'm pretty sure was behind the desk somewhere. Or maybe it was in a safe. I can't remember. It's been a few years. Then they gave us some slow-mo bullet action that Lucy fired towards some enemy, and that is a straight-up rip out of that. So I'm really hoping that we get a ton more things like that. And I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. Speaking of Lucy, I like how we had Ella Purnell tease at Gamescom that sure, she's looking for her dad, who we saw at the end of Season 1 head towards New Vegas, but more time in the Wasteland will have quite an impact on Lucy as a character. And I like how at Gamescom they kind of tease, will Walter Goggins' ghoul influence Lucy, or will Lucy have an influence on the ghoul? Now, I honestly think it's going to be a bit of both. We're probably going to see Lucy get a lot more rough and gruff and away from her Vault Dweller side, even though that little newbie Vault Dweller side will still come out. But she'll absolutely, in my opinion, bring out more humanity in the ghoul, which we've had little glimpses of in the pre-war flashbacks from Season 1. Now, speaking of, another huge part of the Fallout show is the pre-war flashbacks, slowly but surely unraveling how things led up to the post-apocalyptic world with Vault-Tec's shadiness. Now, getting to see Robert House in the pre-war part of this trailer was absolutely awesome, and he'll no doubt play a huge role this season. And even getting to see New Vegas in present day was really giddy for me, because it really does look like we're going to be introduced to a New Vegas quite different from the game, as it looks like things have gone pretty south. I mean, we even see that the Kings from the Strip, one of the factions in New Vegas, look quite feral ghouly here. We do get to see a very notable Securitron from New Vegas, who you may actually recognize, and of course, that is Victor. And then, man, the only other thing I have to say for now is, then there's the freaking Deathclaw. Dude, one of my most anticipated moments is now for sure this scene whenever that comes to fruition, maybe even in Episode 1, because to me, we've all had that moment for the first time where you come across a Deathclaw and it kind of scares the living crap out of you, and there's a very slim chance of surviving. So to recreate a moment like that in the show, just to kind of show how formidable something like a Deathclaw is, I think that is going to be fantastic. And already those initial vibes, it is just this isn't just a ghoul or a feral ghoul, not even a Yaoguai, which we saw in Season 1. This is a Deathclaw. And I think ever since seeing the Alguay in season 1, we've been waiting to see a Deathclaw like this. But I've got my fingers crossed as well, by the way, not to take away from the Deathclaw moment. I want to see a super mutant. I really want to see a super mutant or two. I really hope that they bring those guys in. But now moving on to the DC side of things, and we've had quite a few updates that I want to cover here. So first of all, we have here from DC Film News, and there's been quite a few comments coming out from Gunn. The first one that is highlighted is how the Superman Saga that we've heard of recently could span 4 films according to James Gunn. However, within the context of the larger quote, yeah, I'm sure he has got an outline, but I don't think this necessarily guarantees 4 movies straight up. Like, I think this is more of a thing in flux as things unfold throughout the Superman saga. Now, of course, we have Superman as a part of those possible 4 movies, and then this sequel, which was sort of a sequel, but now is kind of being called a straight-up sequel, which, kind of makes you wonder if Gunn was playing quite loose through saying sort of sequel, because again, in recent comments, it has just been called sequel. So I don't really want to read into that too much, especially when the waters are getting muddied even more. Like, is it a super family sequel, which has led lots of people to think we are literally going to have Millie Alcock's Kara. They might team up to take on someone like Brainiac or God knows what else. But the reason why I kind of preface that again here, the water's getting muddied because now I feel like we're pivoting back a little bit with Gunn's latest comments on a Deadline interview that I believe you can listen to on Spotify. James Gunn describes the Superman follow-up as taking place within the group of characters we've already met, and Superman is an important element. So, the latter of that comment is exactly what we've heard before. Superman is an important, and in other comments he said, a major part of the Superman follow-up, the sort of sequel / the Superman sequel. Whatever you choose for it to be out of those comments, I guess all of them apply. But now, he says, within the group of characters we've already met. This leads me back to my original speculation, and I'm not the only one to have said this, in how, if you guys remember me saying, what if whatever comes next after Superman incorporates characters from the Justice Gang, so not just Superman, although he is a major component of the movie. Yeah, maybe even Supergirl. I don't know, but I've always said that I feel like Gunn's gonna do a Justice League International inspired kind of thing. Now, hold your horses, because whenever I say that, someone's like, Gunn isn't literally going to do Justice League International. I'm saying inspired, because obviously Maxwell Lord literally corporately funding a team called the Justice Gang with Guy Gardner in it, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific, and now Metamorpho, and they were trying to recruit more members, as we're seeing in Peacemaker Season 2. This does feel to me that maybe some of the original speculation of mine and others is not entirely false. Maybe not entirely true, because it may center around 1 or 2 characters more than others. But Gunn, as you see it here yourself, the follow-up takes place within the group of characters we've already met. Well, the group of characters we've already met were the Justice Gang, in Superman. I think that this could actually be a kind of evolution of the Justice Gang. Now, I'm not saying this follow-up is going to necessarily establish the Justice League. It's still probably going to be a bit of a proto-league, which the Justice Gang is. I mean, we've got the Hall of Justice. We've got something called Justice but Gang. It is going to evolve into a Justice League one day. But it is making me wonder if Gunn is going to introduce more characters in this follow-up, like Martian Manhunter, to make it a bit more Justice League International inspired, like under Maxwell Lord, as per those comics. Maybe Mr. Miracle, maybe Blue Beetle, maybe Booster Gold, so on and so forth. Maybe, dare I even say it, Batman, because Batman was very much so involved in the Justice League International, and I'm not saying this is the case, I've just always been open to it. But since it does seem more and more that Gunn is honing in on how the Batman and the DCU Batman are separate, with even more quotes that we're going to get into. Well, if you don't want to wait until 2028 at the earliest to see a Bruce Wayne cast but still have him play a relevant role in the DCU that still contributes to the overarching story of, okay, we're going from proto Justice League with the Justice Gang into something a bit more, formed and respectable, like maybe into the Justice League one day. Well, you could have him be in the early stages of that. But this could be a whole DCU discussion series at this point. So I would love to know your thoughts on that. That latest Gunn quote, the follow-up as taking place within the group of characters we've already met, and Superman is an important element. Now, speaking of this follow-up, well, it might not be about the follow-up, but we've had an interview with Frank Grillo that just came out, where, as Home of DCU says here, Frank Grillo says that James Gunn teased to him a secret DC project at the Peacemaker premiere. So Frank Grillo says that Gunn said, you know what we got coming next, right? And I'm like, no. He goes, we've got something big, and you're all over it. So, okay, very interesting. I'm just going to assume for now, for, speculation's sake, that Gunn is planning to make Rick Flag Sr. another big part of another project because, pretty big in Creature Commandos, pretty damn big in Peacemaker Season 2, but his character is continuing to echo throughout the DCU projects, and with Gunn's follow-up, well, think about it. He is the head of Argus. Now, I have no idea what happens in Peacemaker Season 2, Episodes 6, 7, and 8 that Gunn is teasing has important kind of ramifications for the DCU from there on out. There's theories. Could it be Booster Gold? Could it be an appearance from Luthor? Could it be not only an appearance from Luthor, but also another, again, something like Booster Gold to set things up? Well, I'm now wondering, again, this is all speculation, would love your input here, but I think that Gunn's basically, teasing him at the Peacemaker premiere in real life, being like, hey man, we got something big for you. Like, the next thing we're doing is pretty big. You're all over it. Because I think with Rick Flag Sr.'s new position as head of Argus, whatever happens at the end of Peacemaker Season 2 and where his journey is at from there on out, let's just assume he's still the head of Argus. With whatever happens next with this group of super characters that Gunn is writing for, the group within the group of characters we've already met in Superman, and Superman is an important element. Well, maybe Rick Flag Sr. is made aware of a threat or something where they want to form some kind of, response to it. That might need to be a bit more, I don't know the right word to use, but impressive than the Justice Gang. Maybe this could even relate to what I spoke about in my Peacemaker Season 2 Episode 1 breakdown, with how there seems to be this kind of overarching but yet subliminal commentary going on in the DCU with how metahumans are really becoming a big problem. But there's this another point visited on, just like in Superman a few times, where things are getting to the point of forcing an urgent response. And I think, Rick Flag, the head of Argus, is going to have to kind of deal with that. And again, he's at the center of each of these teases. In Superman, towards the end, that where that other guy says to him, oh, they're calling the shots now, and Flag's just kind of like this. In Peacemaker Season 2, Episode 1, he's watching a news report about, metahumans becoming a lot more of a problem, breakouts at Arkham, and he's just kind of like, oh my god. So I think it's going to continue that. Potentially. Maybe Flag thinks there's now a need for there to be a bit of a governing group for metahumans to look up to. I know there's already a Justice Gang, but, clearly the Justice Gang aren't exactly what you would call the beacon of all governing groups like you would maybe for the Justice League or some kind of thing like that. I don't know. Loosely, that's what I'm thinking could be happening, and also Rick Flag Sr.'s role. Now, Gunn also said that the next DC films are likely the Superman follow-up and the Batman 2, specifically saying here, the next movie we're going to be making is probably the follow-up to Superman. Hopefully we're making Batman 2 before that. And I kind of thought to myself, again, I don't want to deep this too much, but it's like, why do you say hopefully we're making the Batman? Is this got to do or pertain to what you said to Josh Horowitz with how, you like the script, but there's still a couple of things that still have yet to be figured out? And I want to stress, that it could be a range of things that you don't need to get too conspiratorial about. We spoke about Greg Fraser in the last news video with how, the Beatles movies, all four of them is like a 15-month shoot, and that started in July-ish. And, that takes you kind of past the Batman's projected spring date of filming, which could be April, May. Now, maybe there's some things that need to be figured out there. So that's why he might be saying, hopefully we're making Batman 2 before that, the Superman follow-up. And you would have thought, like, on the bottom line, well, yeah, the Batman 2 should start shooting before the Superman follow-up, which you're only still writing the script for. So to say, hopefully, like, really? Surely the Batman 2 is way more ready to go, James Gunn, than your script that you've just got past the treatment for and well into the actual screenplay writing process. But again, that's why I want to remind you guys, maybe there are certain things that they're trying to figure out. Like, okay, well, if Greg Fraser's not going to be the cinematographer, we now need to find one. And that's another thing to figure out, as per what James Gunn said. Now, we did have Tina Marie, who I believe got added as a crew member onto the Batman 2, saying that the script is complete. We start filming in a couple of months. Now, I believe this was posted actually a couple of weeks ago, you know, the more I dig into this, and it just kind of went under the radar, and people found that pretty cool because, like, well, okay, they actually are making moves behind the scenes, and you have some crew members kind of speaking a bit publicly about it, but I think this post may have been deleted now. Now, I think she might have readdressed this saying, I say a couple of months, but it, I mean a few. The process for a film takes a while, so be patient. So basically, she was kind of addressing maybe all the people who went to message her to kind of say, like, okay, I'm excited to work on it, but, like, yeah, I can't really say anything right now, and it actually isn't filming in a couple of months because spring is more than a couple of months away. But the encouraging thing I take out of this is that the Batman Part 2 is still kind of making moves behind the scenes, right? I think really the steps is just that they've got some things to figure out. They've got a long pre-production window until roughly April, May, shooting, which is when, you know, they said they should start shooting as per the Warner Brothers Discovery letter, spring 2026. But as the next couple of months unfold or so, I do hope that we hear a little bit more things with regards to Part 2. It's not even hope. As I've said before, we should. Like, things are very much so moving, albeit in flux, but this is just like the minutest crumb of somebody saying something with how they've heard something officially that they're going to be working on Part 2. Imagine now a little bit more than a crumb, where there's a bit more official things happening news-wise or from, like, major trades, because as always kind of tend to tease at the minute, that should be coming sooner or later. Now, in the DCU video game side of things, now this is something that we haven't really heard much about for a long time. Gunn gave a little bit of an update here, saying there's been some slight movements on different things. We have a couple of little DC games coming out, but we have also talked about, and in the early stages of planning, some bigger things. One thing in particular I'm excited about, but it does take time. Plus, you know, I think while they are the co-heads of DC Studios, it was important to get the live action front off the ground. He can't necessarily have a dog leash on every single thing and pay just as much close attention to the DCU video game side of things. Although it is encouraging to hear that there is something, with video games, I don't want them to rush it. The state of the industry today, like only getting one really good game every now and again between a lot of rushed things, underbaked things, all of that kind of. The last thing I would want is a DCU actual canonical video game to be kind of bodge jobbed along the way. Now, they also say that Games Radar adds that a director teased that there is a good chance that Superman star David Corenswet could reprise his role for a video game. Now, one thing that I saw that came out of that is so many people like, it's happening. We're finally getting a Superman open world game, and Corenswet's going to reprise. I wouldn't look at it like that. Like, this video game could be anything in the DCU, where it's kind of cool how it's canonically connected, but it's still, you know, like Peacemaker Season 2. It's still about that character's story, even though you could have overarching plot threads that contribute to some things, but it's still mainly that character story. That's my expectations. I don't expect crazy things. So you could have David Corenswet, Superman, fly in and voice some lines, but, you know, just because you hear that, you shouldn't expect a Superman open world game finally, oh my god, voice acted by David Corenswet. Now, it could be that, but do you know what I mean? I think it's probably going to be something else where you can incorporate other characters just like this. Now, speaking of video games, ladies and gentlemen, I have to touch on this briefly. A lot of people were like asking me about it after the Gamescom thing. And that is, of course, Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. Now, what can I say here? This looks absolutely fantastic. A lot of us grew up playing the Lego games, whether that's freaking the Lego Star Wars games, Lego like there's freaking so many of them, and I was there for it as well. And seeing this, it's basically an Arkham game. Like, the more you look at the gameplay, the more it does seem to be like an Arkham game, just in Lego form. But I love how they've also incorporated, like, Robert Pattinson's Batman, like, skin, and the Batmobile. Like, that's what I'm going to be rocking with. I love the combat. I love the seeming collectibles. I love the tributes to all different Batman stories. There's so much, like, nuggets of goodness in this that, I'm absolutely going to buy this game. And not only, obviously, that, where, I do that anyway kind of thing, but I am going to live stream it on the channel. So if anybody wants to get involved with that in 2026, just know that I will be streaming this on the whole live with BobaTalks streams that we do here. Cannot wait. I think it's going to be a blast. Now, up next, we've got a few really intriguing Marvel stories. First here from Nexus Point News, and we're going to my boy, Daredevil. So exclusive, Daredevil Born Again, set to run through at least Season 3. So Charlie Cox recently created some confusion among fans as he called Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again the final season at GalaxyCon. Cox later apologized for his comments, saying that Season 2 would not be the final season. His co-star Vincent D'Onofrio also refuted that claim, initially stating that there would be a good chance of Season 3 happening. Now, sources tell Nexus Point News that Daredevil Born Again is expected to continue through at least a third season, depending on the reception of Season 2. Now, that's fairly self-explanatory. They plan, long story short here, to go at least 3 seasons, but, if Season 2 was absolutely, like, a few thousand people tuned in, they're not going to make Season 3. Now, the thing is, I do think it has a good chance regardless, because Season 2 should really be the moment it kind of takes the crown that it should have always had. It was great getting Daredevil on Disney Plus in the MCU, exploring that story in Season 1, but they had a lot of things to kind of iron out. They were like in the thick of reworking what was once a legal procedurally kind of show, and then, let's self-cannibalize a couple of things from that into something we're now trying to make work. We all loved aspects of it, but most of us can agree it wasn't as strong as we would have liked it to have been. Now in Season 2, well, from the ground up, they can now make it from Episode 1 onwards what they wanted to do all along, ideally. So I'm hoping as a result of that, Season 2 will be a lot stronger. I think it will be by default, and that should garner enough attention from fans to get that Season 3. But at the same time, obviously, we need to see Season 2. So obviously, I will be covering Season 2. The only reason I didn't finish my reviews on the channel at the time is because I went away on honeymoon, and there was just no way I could make videos about it. So just know, for those of you who care, because some people are like, oh, well, I don't care about Marvel. Well, you don't have to watch this part of the video then, but some of us, still do. And yeah, I'll be there for it. Let me know what you're looking forward to with Daredevil Season 2, what you think of this. But next up, we need to talk about freaking Spider-Man Brand New Day, because there's quite a few things to discuss here, such as Tramell Tillman has been cast, and this is coming from Variety. Now, we do have a couple of scoops, but this is coming from a major trade. So they say details on Tillman's character in the web-slinging adventure remains under wraps. Now, a lot of people are happy with this casting, even though they don't know who he's playing, because, I don't know, you may have seen him in Severance or various other things that he's been in. Now, personally, I really don't know where, to pin which character he's playing. I've seen some people say, could this be Tom Holland's kind of Norman Osborn? And it's like, a part of me is kind of like, that is really cool. I would love Norman Osborn, but at the same time, if we do the Norman Osborn, Harry Osborn thing in the college trilogy, I've always had an issue with No Way Home in terms of how I feel that effectively wrote off Harry and Norman in such a way where, well, Peter would always kind of know that that's a possibility, the whole Green Goblin side of things, with one of these characters, right? Oh, I need to watch out for the whole Osborn Goblin thing. So with that takeaway, but they could still, to be fair, they could still do a Norman Osborn, and basically Peter can still be aware of it. But I've seen some people suggest things like there could be a poetic tragedy there with how, because he's aware of a multiversal version of that from Raimi's Spider-Man, his keeping an eye on it and trying to prevent anything like that happen could be Peter's kind of, I don't know, somehow he inadvertently makes it happen anyway. I don't know. That does sound very basic, but hey, it might not be anywhere near Norman Osborn. People are shooting left, right, center, yeah, but what if it's Prowler? What if it's Morales? What if it's freaking Gwen Stacy? All I'll say is, personally, is that I hope he's playing quite a significant role, because he's a very good actor, and I feel like they could be cooking here, but they got to try and keep it under wraps. If you have any theories, any ideas, do let me know. But it doesn't end there, ladies and gentlemen, because Daniel RPK is reporting or claiming and scooping that Florence Pugh is returning as Yelena in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, this is where I started to think to myself, okay, we got Spider-Man, Punisher, Hulk. Now we got like Yelena. Now, apparently there could even be, there's like rumors out there you could get Tombstone, Tarantula, freaking Scorpion, freaking God knows who else. And it's like, okay, well, how stuffed is this movie going to be? Now, I don't want to seem like a hypocrite, by the way, because when I said on Twitter, like, okay, how are we feeling about all of these characters? And by the way, I'm a big fan of Florence Pugh. Really liked her in Thunderbolts. Really liked what they did with Yelena there. The reason why I said that is because, some people then responded, but like Superman was overstuffed with all these characters. But the difference between Superman, and this is my fundamental thing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, as much as I enjoy the movies, and I will still go into Brand New Day with the optimism of like, okay, even with some of the things that just are the case, I'm going to try and enjoy it as much as I can. With his movies, the difference with Superman having the Justice Gang and various other characters in it is that it's Superman's first movie. Now, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, whether that's Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, each movie has always not felt like a point of view driven story. It's always felt like an ensemble kind of movie story for Peter Parker. You've probably heard me ramble about this before, guys, with how I only want the best for Tom Holland's Spider-Man, so I was hoping with the way things left off at the end of No Way Home, things felt very like, okay, college trilogy, potential point of view driven Spider-Man story in the same feel as like, the Raimi movies and the Andrew Garfield movies. It kind of felt, okay, you had supporting cast there, but it felt like Spider-Man's story. Whereas, again, Tom Holland's, you have supporting cast, but the supporting cast always feel like an ensemble-esque project, and now Brand New Day, really, I don't think there's any avoiding in how this is going to feel ensemble-esque. Now, that doesn't negate how it could still be very entertaining and could still be a very good Spider-Man story. It's just, that's where I kind of feel like, damn, now, again, for a fourth movie, it's going to feel a bit like that. But if that is what it is, at the end of the day, with Sony having certain demands of Disney, if you want to have this character and you want to do that, well, you need to do this, you need to do that. It is what it is. And I'm not going to hold that against the movie in such a fundamental way where it will, like, damper my experience or, like, sour my attitude towards trying to enjoy it. But it's just something I wanted to bring up. Like, again, there seems to be quite a bit of characters, especially if you do combine the rumored characters that could be in this movie as well. Now, I don't know what Yelena's going to do specifically. Maybe she's going to have some fun interactions with Spider-Man. I could totally imagine that, by the way. Maybe she's going to try and recruit Spider-Man for the Avengers, because, if she sees a web slinger going around New York, it is kind of like, well, that guy's pretty good. Maybe we should try and get him on board. Also, with the things that could be going down in New York at the time, it might be kind of hard for someone like Yelena with the new Avengers to kind of be like, okay, yeah, we're not going to do anything about that. So she could obviously come in that way. But I think I'm going to end this video here, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a nice, long, rambly one once again. I hope somewhere in this video you found something to enjoy out of a news dose. If you did, I'd greatly appreciate a like rating on this video to help motivate me on the channel, help algorithmically push it out there a bit more. Consider subscribing, especially for more videos just like this, reviews, breakdowns, all kinds of other things. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.